I welcome the opportunity to speak on this motion today, which focuses on the need for the government to cut back-to-school costs. And I commend my party colleagues, Deputy Clark and Deputy Farrell, on their work in bringing this forward. I mean, the letters and the emails and the texts have already gone out from schools requesting the purchase of books and uniforms, as well as seeking the voluntary contributions that are anything but voluntary from families. And numerous families I've spoken to feel like this is a huge burden. They feel it's a burden every year, but particularly with the current cost of living crisis, it has now become unbearable. And we know that many families are being forced to take out loans or indeed go to charities to cover the back-to-school costs. And schools should not feel the need to have to fundraise or ask for voluntary contributions. I mean, the government need to fund the education system adequately to cover basic costs. And schools are put in this position because of the government's failure to invest. I mean, school books remain probably the most expensive item for parents in terms of annual back-to-school costs. And something has to be done to ease that financial burden on parents. The Free School Book scheme, it could and should be expanded to secondary schools in Budget 24. I'd like to see that happening. It's welcome in primary schools this year, very welcome, but it needs to happen in secondary schools as well. And we know many secondary schools have book rental arrangements in place, and they do reduce costs quite considerably. But I know of one family who have a first-year start in school, and they've been asked for €300, and that's to cover book rental for the first 3 years. And you might think, right, that's not too bad over a 3-year period, but they have to pay it up front, and I'm sure it actually includes a voluntary contribution. For a fifth-year student, which is a 2-year course, they've been asked for €330. That's a lot of money for parents to come up with, especially where they have more than one student starting maybe in first year and in fifth year, and to have to pay out over €600 just to see their students start or their children start in the school. As a former teacher as well, I believe something needs to be done about school book publishers excessively revising their textbooks and forcing families and schools to purchase books every few years when it's entirely unnecessary. Incredibly, the government is in effect increasing student fees this September for third level because they haven't properly funded third level institutions and are forcing them to raise their student contribution charge. I mean, the charge was put in place in the aftermath of the financial crisis as a means for third level institutions to offset government reductions to their core funding. But there's a pattern arising here where parents and students have to fill the gap left by government reducing core funding to educational institutions. And instead of seeing an increase in these contributions, the government needs instead to put in place adequate funding and commit to phasing out fees over the coming years. Educational institutions must be properly resourced so that they do not have to rely on contributions of any kind, and education must be genuinely free and accessible to all. Thank you, Chair.